are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked on Cowboys.
Locked on Cowboys. I am Marcus Mosher. He is Landon McCool, and this is the Locked On Cowboys podcast. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to do some all-22 notes from the Cowboys' Week 13 win over the Saints. Landon and I had a chance to watch some of the film over the weekend. But before we do that, Landon, how you doing today, sir?
Good. I don't know if everyone noticed, but I got a lovely new backdrop. Look at this. They're all professional here. So, but I'm excited. We're getting that home stretch. The NFC East teams are talking trash all throughout Twitter. And it's about that time, man. We've entered December, and it's time to hit that final stretch. And for the Cowboys, that usually means playing a long stretch of NFC East opponents.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the NFC East here in just a second. But do you realize that there's a somewhat realistic chance that we get 3 NFC East teams in the playoffs this year?
I don't want that. I mean, not necessarily because I'm worried about playing them. It's just more that seems like an ugly weekend of football for Washington and Philly. I'm assuming and New York is I assume out of it, but then again, I assume New York and Washington were out of it for a while ago. So there's also the possibility that all the rest of the NFC teams completely imploded somehow. Hope against hope the Giants are in too.
If the playoffs started today, Washington would be the 6th seed in the NFC, and Philadelphia is the 8th seed. All they got to do is pass the 49ers here, and they'll be in the playoffs. So what a wild year. We're gonna get to them in a little bit. We'll save the little brothers of the NFC until the end of the show. But let's talk about the Cowboys, Landon. Yeah. We're gonna go through some of our all-22 notes. I want to start with the offense. Do you think the offense is broken after watching the film from Thursday night?
No, I mean, I still feel the same way that I did kind of with my initial watch through. And it feels like there's some play sequencing issues. There's some maybe trust in the lineups that they had at the time. But I don't think that there's like anything wrong necessarily with the personnel. I don't think there's anything wrong with Dak Prescott and his accuracy. I think it really was a case of playing a very difficult defense,
and it's well coached. It's talented and well coached.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think that they've got it's filled with dudes, that are willing to make plays, that are making plays. I mean, even the guys going in that we kind of were poo-pooing a little bit, like Quan Alexander had an incredible game. Mm-hmm. And, mea culpa on that because he hadn't had a great season necessarily so far, but he played fantastic. And then there was lots of dudes along that defensive line. The defensive tackle group was just brutal, was really tough. I made a meme at some point on Twitter of the dog all pumped up and then the kind of weak looking dog. And I did think that the difference really was that the pumped up dog was the Saints defense, man, of the run defense specifically. When they were playing the run, like they were just hard to move off the ball. They were fighting through double teams, able to make solid tackles. But when it was pass rushing time, it felt like just, especially by the end of the game, mm-hmm. Dak had all day. Dak was just sitting back there and was really kind of unbothered at certain points. So, I think that caused the Cowboys problems early is just how good the Saints run defense was and the fact that the Cowboys wanted to run the football. And then once they kind of realized that they could easily make hay with throwing the football, they changed a little bit of their kind of play sequencing. And then they found some success specifically early when they were throwing the football.
Yeah, I want to talk about Dak because I think you're right. I think Dak was pretty accurate in this game. Is there a couple throws I think he wishes he could have had back? Yeah, I think the one to CeeDee Lamb where on 4th down, I think in hindsight, he would have thrown that ball with a little bit more loft, let CeeDee adjust to it. But he had a guy right in his face. It's a miss. It's whatever. Other than that, he was pretty good in this game. It's just, as you mentioned, the play sequencing and some of the play designs I just did not love. So I don't think it's a problem like their quarterback is broken or anything like that. It just seems like they're a little out of sorts. And I think part of the reason why is, Connor McGovern's just not as good as Connor Williams. I know Connor Williams gets more holding penalties for whatever reason, but on the other 65 plays in a game, Williams is just better, and it seems like that's having a big impact on the offense.
Yeah, I mean, again, I hate to be like that, but I mean, you and I have been saying this since it happened, that this is probably not something that the Cowboys should have done, and the timing of it was questionable to
The
say
only
the
reason
least.
that it makes sense is if you're looking long term, because McGovern has another year left in his contract, and maybe Connor Williams is leaving. But if you want the best 5 linemen out there, McGovern isn't one of them.
Yeah, and I think they've had and to be clear, we should probably give them a slight benefit of a doubt in the sense that they have done this in the past and found success with being able to get Terrence Steele some snaps when it was important, and to get him his feet wet and get him used to playing NFL football. And then eventually, they didn't have a choice; they had to put Terrence Steele out there because they didn't have enough tackles. But I think this is a situation where it was an unforced error. It was unnecessary. I understand that Connor Williams had gotten a lot of holding calls. I mean, that's undeniable. But I think you said it, like 2 or 3 holding calls in the span of 60 plus plays where Connor Williams is playing good football, and the rest of it, that's kind of rough. And I think that's the issue, right? Is that would you give up 2 or 3 holding calls
For a
for
lesser player?
65
Well,
plays of lesser football? So,
and here's the thing: is it's not like if we bench Connor Williams, all of a sudden all the holding calls are going to go away,
no,
right?
exactly. Yeah.
We saw McGovern get penalized a couple times in this game, so I don't understand it. But
Yeah, I think it's just based on watching the tape the last few weeks, and look, the idea is that it's going to improve as he gets more experience, but as it is right now, there's I just think that there's a risk that you're going to continue to kind of throw things off a little bit if you don't find a way to put Connor Williams back in, and it was a little bit more disruptive, I think, than they anticipated. I think it helped having La'el Collins back last week, and I think that they should continue to put La'el Collins out there at right tackle. But again, in back-to-back weeks, unprompted, to swap out 2 starters at the offensive line when you're on a short week, it just seemed ill-advised, and ultimately, I think it kind of bit them in the butt.
I've got another question about the offense for you. But before we do that, I want to tell you guys about DirecTV. DirecTV Stream brings you live TV and on-demand favorites together like never before, which means you can watch your favorite sports, movies, and shows all in one place. And the best part, there's no annual contract. So stop waiting and get your TV together with DirecTV Stream. You can learn more at directv.com. That is directv.com. All right, Lynn, a couple things. Since the Denver game, we're seeing a lot more of teams go cover 0 or cover 1 against the Cowboys and just load up guys on the line of scrimmage, even on early downs. And the Cowboys have chosen sometimes to run into heavy boxes. And when they throw out of these, against this personnel grouping and the alignment, they don't always have success. So what's the key for the Cowboys to beating a lot of cover 0 and cover 1 coverage?
Well, getting healthy. I mean, having Amari Cooper back, I think, is going to be a huge thing, simply because it makes, first of all, it gives you one much better option to kind of beat the blitz. It's to if you get Amari Cooper one-on-one, and that's the other thing too, is that part of the reason that that teams felt like that they could get in cover 0 and cover 1 is because you didn't have Amari out there, or you didn't have CD out there, or you didn't have both, right? And when you don't have 3 guys out there who can easily beat one-on-one coverage, it's a lot less dangerous to kind of send the whole house and worry whether Dak's going to be able to figure out in time, because you're not going to have guys who are going to gash you so hard. So I do think that now that you've got your full complement of wide receivers back, hopefully they're all kind of healthier than they were last week. Mm-hmm. I think it's going to be more difficult for teams. I mean, I'm sure teams will still try that because they've had some success there, but I think it's going to be more difficult for them to have success moving forward if the Cowboys have their healthy complement of receivers.
I agree with you. I would also like to see Kellen Moore do some stuff pre-snap to help the receivers out. Like get some more stack formations in there, just to try to confuse defensive backs, run some more natural pick routes to get guys open in space. I'm hoping with the 10 days off, that's something they kind of figure out. Other than that, Landon, I don't feel like there was too many big takeaways here on offense. I mean, it's kind of been the same issues that we've seen over the last month. And now with Amari Cooper fully back, we're hoping that things get better, right?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I mean, I think, like I said, outside of the early down runs, I mean, I think beyond that too, just running into the teeth of into the tackle specifically instead of trying to get it outside. Not having that same variety in your run game. And honestly, like we don't understand. I mean, admittedly, we don't understand the mechanisms there for how the run game gets called. I do wonder how much the run game suffered from not having either your offensive line coach or your assistant offensive line coach, not just in the adjustments that get made, but also just in the play calling. I think that these guys are the ones who are designing the run game in the large part. So not having them there to kind of see what is and what isn't working on a deeper level, I think was a loss for the Cowboys, and hopefully something that they're going to be able to rectify next week when they get those guys back healthy.
All right, let's go to the defense. A million different places we could start. Let's start with a positive. I think Osa Odigizua had the best game he played in the last 2 months. Like he had some games where he really struggled. He did not play well on Thanksgiving, did not play well against the Chiefs. It was nice to see him have a bounce back game. He had a number of pressures, was pretty good in the run game. I just thought he was good in this one. So any comments on him before we move on?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a tough month for him. I mean, I think you look at the fact that they played, like we said, 3 games in 12 days, and he is basically been holding down the defensive tackle position almost on his own. I mean, they've been rotating guys in there. Watkins has obviously played a little bit of better football, had a nice pick, but overall, it's been Osa Odigizua that's been stirring the drink in the middle of this defense, and then they've been rotating defensive end types as pass rushers on some kind of NASCAR packages to kind of help get some pass rush there. And obviously Parsons has been blitzing in there too. So, but for the most part, as far as pure defensive tackle play, they've been very heavily reliant on this rookie who's had a very good season overall, but I think he just kind of hit a wall. I mean, that's a lot to ask for a young player. I mean, I don't know that he's ever played 3 games in 12 days before. So it was good to see him bounce back in this game. And I think, it bodes well for the fact that you're going to get Hill back. You're going to get Gallimore back. So you can hopefully kind of get a rotation going. So you're not constantly having to rely on Odigizua to be the kind of catalyst at your defensive tackle position. Now you might have some other guys who might be able to help you out there and get him some rest.
I'm really curious to see how this defensive line room shakes out when we get Tristan Hill back and you get Neville Gallimore back this week, because Osa Odigizua played 39 snaps against the Saints. My guess is that's probably going to go down a little bit. Wouldn't you think? Probably closer to 30 snaps a game.
I would think so. Yeah, for sure.
Over the last 2 games, though, Landon, Carlos Watkins has played 49 snaps. Justin Hamilton, 69 snaps. Wow. Is Carlos Watkins going to be the guy that gets squeezed out of the rotation?
I mean, that's an interesting question because, and I have not looked at his snap distribution, but I know that one of the things that Watkins can do is that he can play that one technique. He can play that kind of nose technique a little bit more than you would like to give Osa a bunch of snaps there. So I wonder if anything that maybe Hamilton snaps comes back down a little bit, and then Watkins, kind of eats into his one technique snaps a little bit, and then they maybe just move Watkins more to a full-time one technique role to make room for all the other 3 techniques.
There's also a chance Quinton Bohanna played 25 snaps over the last 2 weeks. My guess is he's just not going to be active next week, right?
Maybe that certainly could be a possibility.
And then maybe you see Watkins maybe take more of the Bohanna snaps, and he's playing, 15. I don't know. It's interesting that Justin Hamilton has played so much, but maybe he's the one that sees fewer snaps when Tristan Hill and Gallimore come back. All right. So Osa, good game. Let's talk about a bad thing, Landon. The linebackers. Oof. Leighton Vander Esch.
Can I just say, I feel like we said this before, but it's absolutely insanity that we have this really decent defensive secondary that's been playing very good football and this really good defensive line that's been rushing the passer, and we cannot solve the linebacker problem. Like, if you had told yourself that before week 1, what would you have said to yourself?
Well, I was actually listening to one of our shows from July, and we were talking about linebacker pairings. Who do we want on the field? Do we want a combo of Jalen Smith and Leighton Vander Esch? Do you want Micah Parsons and Keanu Neal, or do you want Micah Parsons and Jabril Cox? And now the answer is I have no idea. I just want Parsons out there, and the other guy, just don't kill us, please. Because did not think Leighton Vander Esch played all that well. I don't think Keanu Neal played all that well in this game either. And I don't know what you do going forward, Landon, because the linebackers are a huge, huge problem for them. And this is kind of coming back to the Michael Parsons conversation. I think Parsons is more valuable as an edge rusher because that position is so valuable. He's playing that position better than he is linebacker. But your linebackers are so weak right now. And if you can play Gregory and DeMarcus Lawrence at defensive end, and you could have Parsons at off the ball linebacker, maybe that's the best overall spot for the defense. I don't know. What were your thoughts on the linebackers in this game?
I think those are my thoughts, honestly. I think my thought process is that Parsons is the solution here. He's really the only solution you're looking at right now.
It's unfortunate though, because he's such a good edge rusher, though.
Of course. And you can still use him that way, but I also think that, at this point the Cowboys need Parsons on the field as much as possible in some role, whether it's linebacker or defensive. And like what you really can't afford is not to have Micah Parsons on the field.
Well, and that's the argument, right? Would you rather have Parsons 65 plays a game at linebacker or Parsons 40 plays at edge?
I think I'd rather have Parsons at 50 snaps of both. That's where I'm no, I mean that's where I'm at.
I mean, that's probably the right answer. You are probably right, to be honest.
Yeah, is to get and honestly, I think it's closer to 35 snaps if he's playing full defensive end. It's really, really difficult. So I do think that it's like a 50, 45 snap thing where he's playing edge when they need him to on key third downs, but he's playing linebacker when they need him to too, because they need him on early downs to kind of get some of these teams into third and long situations. So now that you've got Gregory back, now that you've got Lawrence back, you can afford to do that a lot more. I mean, that was the other thing before, is that you just couldn't afford to not have Parsons rush the passer. You've got guys back at both the defensive end positions and also in the defensive tackle position. So your front four looks a lot more solid than it did just even a week ago. So I think that means that you can afford to play him some more snaps at linebacker. And then the idea being that, if you needed to, when you need him to, he can be a pass rusher. You kick Lawrence inside and suddenly you've got a real good front four rushing the passer.
I agree with you. I think that is the solution. Now, it seems like I say this every week, but not having Donovan Wilson hurts a lot here when your linebackers are struggling, because if you have Donovan Wilson, you can play more of Jaron Kearse as a linebacker. In fact, you can drop Donovan Wilson down in the box and he's going to take on the run just as good as those other two guys are. So maybe by the time we get back to the playoffs or we get close to the playoffs, we'll see Wilson back, and maybe that helps mitigate some of the problems at linebacker. But Leighton Vander Esch is just a train wreck right now, Leighton. I don't know what you do with him. I really don't.
Yeah, he's just, it's very similar to what happened with Jalen, right? Where it just feels like he's lost all the burst and athleticism, and I don't know if it's just injuries piling up or whatever, but he just doesn't look like the same athlete at all that he used to. So he just looks like a big slow guy instead of a big guy that moved incredibly well for someone his size. That side of his game is gone, and when you think about when we go all the way back to our evaluations of Leighton Vander Esch, right? We talked about how he didn't really take blocks on coming out of college because he didn't ever learn to, because he didn't ever need to, right? He was so athletic. Yeah. He can just get around the blocks and get through them and slip them. He can't do that now. He doesn't have that athleticism, and then without the skill set to take on linebackers, it's kind of hard to teach him at this point. He's like kind of neither here nor there, and that's not a good spot to be for a big, kind of bulky linebacker who doesn't really move that well in the grand scheme of linebackers.
I think he'll be okay. Like this week against Washington, that's a team that I think he'll be fine against. But my bigger concern is when you play the Cardinals here in a couple of weeks, when you play the Packers in the playoffs, if you play the Rams in the first round of the playoffs, that's a guy that good head coaches and good offenses are just going to scheme against. And you might just have to take him right off the field because he just doesn't move well.
And then it goes back to Parsons, right? Like when you play the Cardinals, you're gonna likely need Parsons to play linebacker simply because you may want him to spy, Murray. You may want him just to play the run a little bit, so he's not so susceptible to what Cliff Kingsbury's offense wants to do. I just think that there are games where and again, it kind of goes back to this idea that we shouldn't be pigeonholing him to one position. We should be that's what we should be doing, is deploying him appropriately based on opponent. So we shouldn't get so caught up in whether he's playing defensive end or linebacker only.
One more note on the defense before we move on. Anthony Brown, I mean, just so much better this game. He was targeted 14 times, only gave up 54 yards, which is incredible. It's really easy for a cornerback to get their confidence shaken after a bad game in which you got 4 pass interferences and you gave up, the big penalty of the game that lost you on Thanksgiving. I thought he bounced back really well, and just a testament to how well Brown has played really all season long.
Yeah, I mean, he really has had an incredible season, and this is the kind of the Anthony Brown that we all hoped that we would get, after his rookie season. Is a guy that came into the league as a late round pick and immediately became a contributor, has been a solid player for the Cowboys these last few years. Had a rough year last year. There's no way around it. And I think the overall fan base lost confidence in him because it felt like this was kind of the last year for him to kind of turn it around a little bit. But I think he showed you all throughout his career that he has talent. He belongs in this. I think, his injuries really kind of hurt him last year. Hurt his play. And I think this year, he's really battled through, and, he's had some up and down games. Mm-hmm. He's a cornerback in the NFL. That's going to be part of it. So, but I think the key thing is that he's had probably more good games than bad. And he's definitely, made it worth the time. And to the point where all throughout the offseason, we talked about when was the timeline for Joseph to take over that job. Like, that's not even a question at this point right now. And not that the Joseph has played specifically poorly. It's just he hasn't played at all. Like, because Brown has been so good that he hasn't had an opportunity to be on the field. I will point out, just because I'm ragging on 24 a little bit. Have you noticed how he's kind of turned into this special teams ace?
Yeah, he's a good gunner, isn't he?
He 2 or 3 times during that game, he was down at the returner, like, first by 10 yards probably. Yeah. Which really shows not only his speed, but his great ability to fight through the double teams and the blocks that are happening there. So good on Joseph, kind of making himself useful while kind of waiting his time for an opportunity to kind of take on Brown.
Just really quickly on the cornerback thing, I'm really curious to see what happens next year because Diggs under contract. Jordan Lewis signed a deal this offseason that has him guaranteed through the 2023 season. You drafted Kelvin Joseph. You drafted Nahshon Wright. But you also have Anthony Brown under contract for 1 more year. Now, you could cut him and save $5 million against the cap. But good corners are hard to find. And $5 million. Is it worth cutting him and saving that? Or do you want to just keep your depth?
I would keep him, man. I mean, $5 million is nothing for the way he's playing. Like, really, like, seriously. And even if Joseph comes on and you want to start Joseph, suddenly you've got a quarterback trio of an oncoming Joseph, Diggs, and Brown as like potentially your slot corner, and then you can kind of configure them however you need.
You still have Jordan Lewis under contract. Yeah. You still have Nahshon Wright kind of waiting in the wings. You have Reggie Robinson still on the team as well. Maurice Kennedy, maybe he comes back next year. It's a good problem to have. All right. Let's take one more break so I can tell you guys about BetOnline. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all the sports action this season. Head to the new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today to receive your bonus. All you have to use is promo code LOCKEDON. From basketball, football, NHL, boxing, UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and the easiest way to bet on all of your favorite sports. We also want to tell you guys about Built Bar. Built Bar is the best tasting protein bar out there. It's hard to even explain it. Real chocolate, amazing flavors. It's just a great combination of low calories, high protein, and low sugar with no crazy additives. Best of all, they taste fantastic. Go to BuiltBar.com and use promo code LOCK15 to get 15% off your next bar at BuiltBar.com. All right, Landon, let's wrap up the NFC East from the weekend. Let's start with Washington, who beat the Raiders 17-15. It's actually the second straight week the Washington football team has won a game 17-15. Their offense continues to sputter a little bit. They walked the ball up and down the field on the first drive of the game, did not do much the rest of the day. We've had the Eagles, who are now firmly entrenched into a quarterback controversy with Gardner Minshew against Jalen Hurts. And then we have the Giants, who put up 9 points against the Miami Dolphins. Mike Glennon, 23 of 44 for 187 yards, and he got hurt meaning Jake Fromm will start this week for the Giants. So
I can only assume he hurt his neck, right? Because
he did. He got a concussion. So
okay, I'm assuming his huge neck just whipped back and.
Which team are you the most nervous about in this division?
I mean, it's Washington simply because they have 2 games against us. Like that's really it, and they're 2 games back. So if they win both games, then suddenly they're in a position to kind of put the Cowboys in a bad spot. But I'm not actually worried about it. I mean, I think that the issue is that the offense for the I was going to say the Redskins, but they're not that many. The offense for the Washington football team is, like you said, sputtering to say the least. They still have Taylor Heineke, a quarterback who is a guy that you could root for, is a great backup. But again, ultimately, at the end of the day, is a flawed player to say the least, and kind of a difficult player to kind of rest your offense off. They lose Logan Thomas, I think, in the middle of the game. I can't even remember.
He's out for the season. Yep.
Yeah, he's out for the season.
Yep.
I just think that Washington's the team simply because they have the opportunity. But all this "we want Dallas" talk, it's
you got just this week.
You just got to 500 guys, and it's congratulations on getting there. But it's not exactly a feared opponent. I think the Cowboys need to go in and win this game. It's an NFL opponent, but I'm not sweating this game like it was the Tampa Bay Bucks game or anything like that.
I do want to say, here's Washington's drives after their first drive of the game. They scored a touchdown. That was a fantastic drive. Punt, 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 halftime. Punt, touchdown drive, interception, and then a field goal drive where Taylor Heineke 3 times in the same drive threw the ball to a Raider defender who dropped it. That was their entire offense against the Raiders. So, I mean, they'll have some drives that are really, really nice, and they'll look good, and Heineke will look competent, but way too often they're just not consistent at all. And that's kind of what we knew Washington would be this year. They're going to be a team that probably wins around 8 to 9 games, but not a real contender. The Cowboys need to show them that, on Sunday, that's the case. Are you nervous about that game at all?
This Washington game?
Yeah.
Not really, because I think the thing that really the Cowboys have struggled with is when there's an offense that has a quarterback that consistently can kind of, deftly move the ball with accuracy, right? And then on a run game that can really take advantage of it. I just don't know that the Redskins have that. I mean, the Washington football team has that because, the Heineke is such a high variance player. It's what makes him exciting to watch and what makes him easy, I think, for Washington football team fans to root for. But I think when you're forced to kind of make him be consistent and drive the ball the length of the field to score touchdowns, he just can't really do it. And I think that what you just brought up is a great example of the 3 different times that the Raiders football players got their hands on the ball and couldn't come down with it.
Yep.
I just don't know that they're going to have that same luck with the Cowboys. I mean, the Cowboys have done a really good job of converting on those type of plays and turning them into interceptions. So, I think the biggest disadvantage that Washington probably has in this game is their offense versus our defense. And not that our defense is elite, but our defense has been pretty good. They're about to get even better. And Washington's offense is kind of trending in the opposite direction.
And without Logan Thomas, they just don't have anybody across the middle of the field that really scares you. I think McLaurin could be a bad matchup for Dallas with Trevon Diggs because it's not really the type of receiver he does. He covers very well, but Heineke's not really the kind of quarterback that meshes well with Terry McLaurin, right? It's just they're not really on the same page. We've seen that over the last couple of weeks.
He can't really take advantage of Terry McLaurin's skill set the way that you would hope that would really scare you. I think the Cowboys are going to be very able to kind of keep it all in front of them. Yeah. Again, this is not the kind of offense that's a bad matchup for this team, right? Because Taylor Heineke specifically can't do the 2 things that have hurt the Cowboys this year. Like I said, drive the length of the field with accuracy and consistency, and then drive the ball down the field as in big plays. Heineke, is a very, let's just be kind, below average armed quarterback. He struggles to get the ball down the field without, kind of rainbowing it, which is going to give opportunities for players to catch up. But even like in the intermediate, cross hash type field throws, the ball struggles to get there. It doesn't show up on a rope. It allows cornerbacks the opportunity to get back there.
That's why it's
I
a
just
bad
don't.
matchup
I just don't know that it's a good matchup for Washington because the Cowboys going to play a bunch of man coverage. It's going to make him throw accurately down the field if he wants to get it down the field. I don't know that he can necessarily do that consistently. Now, there are fluky elements that obviously if the Cowboys don't tackle well, if the Cowboys can't seem to, keep him in the pocket or tackle him when he gets out of the pocket, there are certainly ways they can win this football game. But I think on paper, just looking at it initially, this is not a good matchup for the Washington football team.
I will say there are certain types of quarterbacks that give Cowboys fits, and we're talking about the non-elite quarterbacks, like the Teddy Bridgewater, the Case Keenum types that get rid of the ball quickly and accurately, that can put together long drives, do give the Cowboys problems.
That have playmakers too. Playmakers. Yeah,
if
that's
you've
key.
watched Taylor Heineke this year, he's somebody who likes to try to extend the play. He holds the ball for a long time. And with the Cowboys getting their pass rushers back, that could be a bad formula for Washington. If he's trying to do too much, I think that's where he's going to get in trouble. We're going to have plenty of time this week to preview this game. We're going to talk to Chris Russell from Locked On Washington. We're going to do a preview show later in this week. Tomorrow, though, Landon, we're back to doing questions. I know we haven't done that in a while.
Normal week, guys.
Make sure you guys send those in to us. I can't wait to see what you guys want to talk about. You can follow the show, Locked On Cowboys, on Twitter. You can follow us on YouTube. Please continue to download, support the podcast. We really, really appreciate it. Follow Landon at McCool BCB. I am at Marcus _Mosher. We'll see you guys next time.